So
So we had a few
yeah,
questions come in too.
yeah.
If we bought a reverse mortgage note, should I continue to release monthly payments until I take possessions? Gee, no, right? You're not releasing anything on the note. It literally is in default, and your process is either A, foreclose, or B, taught to heirs take over.
Yeah. So most of these, again, yeah, I would say most are a year to 3 years behind. So meaning it's in default that long. So they're not getting any distributions anymore from anyone. There's no one to give a distribution to, because the ones we buy, at least myself, are ones that all the parties are deceased. So yeah, so there's not an issue there.
Yeah.
Now I
So
had one
it's
question too from, I think, that you had forwarded me. I'm gonna try to. Oh, I
yeah.
thought
So what we
I
want to
had
do
it
is
teed up here. Go ahead.
if you're looking for some scenarios in PowerPoint, Randy has a great PowerPoint for you guys to look at that we're probably going to go over today, but I would definitely encourage you to reach out to him. We've shared his contact information, how to obtain it. I'll repost it into all the chats so you can see it. For those watching on the replay on YouTube, feel free to take a look at it and go from there. So if you want to get the information, you want to learn more about it, see the PowerPoints, feel free to go ahead and take a look at that. And he can share it over to you. So just reach out to him, ask for the PowerPoint, and we'll go from there, which is awesome. So when you're going to this process of buying this asset, your goal is the fact that you're going to be foreclosing on this thing and taking the property back. Is there times where the heirs have stepped up in your scenario?
Yeah, so there's two things before I answer, or one thing before I answer that question. So
Yeah.
my goal is not always, obviously, is not always getting the house back. So a lot of times will price it at auction so I can try to sell it at auction. So, maybe they owe 200,000. I might price it at 80 cents. So I price it at 150 at auction, and hoping someone, third party comes in, buys the house at auction, and then guess what? I'm out of the picture. I just get my money. So as long as my spread between what I bought it for and what I can sell it to at auction is enough, then I'll do that, because my returns are higher, because guess what? It's a time value money, right? It's a short time. So so that actually would be, right now, that's been my preferred, because I have a lot of houses I'm working on. So I'd say in the auctions of the last 20 that I've done, probably 70%, 60, maybe 67, somewhere between 60 and 70%. Let's say 2/3 go to auction sale, where it goes to a third party, because I priced it that way. Now, if I priced it for full payoff, I would get the property back each and every time, because they owe a lot more usually than it's worth. Yeah. But if I buy that particular asset at a value that's low enough, or a price that's low enough, then I sell it at auction. But getting back to your, I forgot what your question was.
It's okay. So it was about so one of the questions we had was does the deed change ownership? So Richie asked the question, does the deed change ownership to the investor now? I thought that triggers and puts a mortgage company on notice that the deed changed owners. So when you're buying this reverse mortgage, you are the lender on the situation. You are the mortgage company. So it's not that you're triggering. It's not a subject to scenario where you're like all the big things going on we talked about in the past was you're taking over some borrower's mortgage. You're literally becoming the bank. It went from Bank of America to Bank of You. And now you own the debt on it because of reverse mortgage in this scenario. Now, there's other ways of buying notes, and we've done that, and we talked about that in many of our webinars, right? But this is the idea of you're buying a reverse mortgage. So you become the lender on file on a default of reverse mortgage, and now the deed owner, you're going to foreclose to get deeded ownership on that. Hopefully that makes sense, Rich. Cindy made a comment that I found a nice vacant property where the owner was deceased. The title search was run and discovered there was a small line of credit plus the reverse mortgage. And then that note was assigned to USDA. It's been vacant for 2 years. and no foreclosure yet. I hope that gets fixed. Right, and whatnot, so trying to get a hold of the heirs, absolutely, so that's probably the most challenging part. Would you say, Randy, is getting a hold of the heirs and make sure that any note you're foreclosing on, make sure that if a borrower is deceased, that you're notifying the heirs. Is that probably your biggest hurdle?
Yeah, because I remember the question now you had mentioned
Yeah.
the air. So of the ones that I purchased, let's just talk about we're talking about reverse mortgages today. Of the ones that I've purchased, I'd say, less than 5% reach out at all.
Wow.
So the heirs, I think the two I remember, one was they said, one was just, hey, I need to get some stuff out of the house. Okay, so I had to arrange that. Number two, the other one was, I'd like to buy the house. Okay, great. Here's what they owe, or here's what's owed. Oh no, forget. They see that huge number and they're like, no, forget it. Right. So they're thinking they're going to get some kind of steal, but if they came back and they negotiated, I would negotiate with them, right? I'm not going to do it for the full payoff when it's worth less than what's owed, of course, right?
Sure.
I'd come back if they came maybe in the 80% range, something like that, 80, 85. I'd probably do it, but I haven't had that experience. Really, very few people reach out at all. So
Gotcha.
That's same with me. Hardly
Same with-
ever had any of the. It's usually we just go straight to foreclosure and that's it.
Yeah. So this fear of heirs. No, Randy, what Nathan was saying is that he's had the same scenario with heirs. Typically, no one bothers him. He goes straight to foreclosure, and typically the heirs don't hold up anything. Right.
Yeah, really, they don't. Sometimes I've had some, maybe ones in the past on your traditional notes,
Mhm.
but probably I could kind of, probably two in the last 10 years.
Yeah. So Kirk asked, so one of the things Kirk asked us was when you're trying to price this, how do you price these things?
Yeah, these are a little bit easier to price in my opinion, because you don't have to do all the calculations if you get the house back and you do a loan mod with them, you got to figure out what your return is going to be, right? So it's not always clear cut. These are fairly clear cut. So usually, I'll price them, based on the value. Of course, that's one of the most important things.
Yeah.
And then I would also calculate it based on assuming my exit of 80% of the value at auction, right? Because that's what I'm finding is kind of the sweet spot. So if I price it at 90 cents, they don't sell at auction. If I price it at, anything much higher than 80, sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, right? Because I've had one bid up, like I just had one recently bid way up past more than I ever thought. So it's kind of a guess game, but yeah, so you really have to price it. And so if you find a house that's worth, let's say 200,000 and they owe 200,000 and you buy that note at 160,
yeah,
then, you got to factor in your attorney costs and all that too. So usually, again, I price it roughly at 80% of what I could get at an auction.
but you're pricing on an idea that you're gonna buy this thing, either owner finance it or sell it as is on the market. Ideally, you want to sell it owner finance, so you can get that note back rolling. And then we have a few more questions regarding.
Yeah, just to clarify the pricing. So I'm not buying it at 80% of the value, by the way. I'm assuming that if I sold it at auction 80%, how much, let's say that was 160, I better be buying it at least 130, 140, right? To make a spread of $20,000, $30,000, right?
Yep.
So my return, I'm looking at, 20 to 25% plus to get return. Some are, 100%, some are, but it better be at least 20, 25% in terms of that spread between what I sell at auction and what I buy it for.